Hey everybody, welcome back to the Metal Mill 52 workshop. Hope you've had a good week, and I just wanted to give you a little intro. In this segment, this will be shorter than some of my others, probably only about 10 or 15 minutes max. But as you can see, I've taken the wheel head and cleaned it up and painted it. It's the same thing for the motor mount. I cleaned up the sides of it a little bit, and I've got it all mounted up. I made the rubber, not the rubber band, but the poly drive belt here. Actually, it's urethane, and I've got that installed. You'll see that in this segment. And one thing I didn't really talk about in here is after I got done painting the painted parts that you see so far, I did put a coat of wax on them. And if you like, let me just go ahead and come around here, and I'll start it up for you. We can see how the drive belt works installed. There we go. It's a little noisier than I thought it would be, but good torque, good power transmission. And if I need to, I can tighten the belt up a little bit. You probably saw that when I was making the motor mount itself. But oh yeah, also, I don't think I talked about this in the video, and I did the segment on it, but I did clean up the wiring, put it all in one loom there. So pretty pleased with it so far. The next steps will be working on the tool holders, basically taking them apart, cleaning them up, doing the paint and body work on those as well. So thanks again for watching, everybody. As I've mentioned before, I'm trying to grow the channel. So if you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up. Please pass the word to others that you might find this interesting, and look forward to future updates. Thanks again, everybody. Okay, happily there's not a lot of paint and body work to do on the motor mount itself. I do have a little rim here that I'm going to grind down. This is the part that's going to be seen the most, so I'm going to kind of just soften this up a little bit, and I think I'll put a little JB Weld on this tonight, and just so it's a little smoother so I can paint it tomorrow. This part really doesn't need any body work on it, maybe a little bit of sanding and filing before I prime it, so a lot of it's not going to be seen, obviously. After my last segment, I took the motor housing apart and just took the spindle out, took all the hardware off of it, and got it ready for a little bit of beginning paint and body work. First thing I did was I noticed there was just a couple of spots on the cast iron that needed to be cleaned up a little bit. So I used this. I gotta tell you, this is becoming one of my new favorite Dremel things. This little grinding wheel. It's the same kind of material as you have on your 4-inch grinding wheels with a big angle grinder, but it's a little bit thinner, and it fits on one of these easy lock tool mounting studs. So I smoothed the cast iron out with this thing first, and it's lasted a long time. And then I used this 80 grit flap wheel that Dremel makes also, and that cleaned up really nice. So I was able to coat the first coat of JB Weld on this side. This is probably the roughest surface of all, and I used a business card to kind of flatten it out, use it like a bodywork tool a little bit on this side too, just to even up some of the low spots. And then the only other major portion was on here. There was a little bit of parting line from the casting, so I ground that smooth, and then I coated it down with the JB Weld. I'm getting ready to hand sand this now with 100 or 120 grit, just to kind of level it off, and I'll do one more coat of JB Weld if I need to. Probably will, just to give the bodywork a little bit of smoothness. Here's a similar situation. This was the only part, just this area here, that I'm running my thumb along. There's a little bit of ridge left from the machining, so on both sides I kind of evened it out with the grinding wheel, and cleaned it up with a flap disc, and then I put a coat of JB Weld on there. So now I'll sand those down and put another coat on tonight, and it should be ready for primer tomorrow, and get ready to paint it soon. Alright, so I've got 2 coats of JB Weld on this and sanded it down. I went to 80 grit, then 120 grit, then 220 grit, and got it all sanded down, got it basically masked off for priming anyway. So this is the vertical column piece, and here's the spindle housing. Just use this old catalog pages for masking and some blue painter's tape. So just wanted to show what that looks like with the JB Weld filler. It looks kind of mottled and irregular, but it'll look nice when the primer goes on. You can feel how smooth it is with your finger. So we'll shoot a couple coats of primer, let that dry. This is the kind of primer I use, this Krylon rust protector. Great thing about this primer is it dries really fast. So I'll put the spray mask on, shoot a couple of coats of that, and let it dry. It's kind of a rainy day here today, but if I get in between the raindrops, should be fine. And we'll get the coat, the primer coat on. Okay, here we are about 10 minutes later. Just thought I'd follow up. I haven't touched these things other than shooting a coat of primer on them, so it looks really good. I'm going to let it dry overnight, and I'll sand it down with some 220 or maybe even just a 320 grit tomorrow. Shoot another coat of primer probably, let that dry, do a light sanding, and then start brushing on the top coat. And here we are midway through the week. 2 coats of the Krylon primer sanded and 2 coats of the top coat with my custom blue-gray paint, and this is finished. I'll let this solidify a little bit more before I put it all back together. I do need to clean out the overspray that got into the machined cylinder surfaces, but I use a straight razor for that. Excuse me, a single-edged razor blade, and then a little sandpaper just to clean that up. But very, very pleased with the finish, the way the paint smooths out. Another thing, I thought while I had the spindle out, this would be a good time to check things, because I had never actually independently checked the concentricity of the run out of the spindle in a location other than the lathe. But here it is, set up in the mill with little V blocks, and this is my half thou indicator. And as you can see, I mean, the needle's barely moving. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it moved 1 tick, maybe plus or minus 1 tick, and each one of those is a half a thou. This is a little half thou inter-rapid indicator. So very pleased. This is I'm measuring the concentricity on the 20-degree machine surface, so it's very nice. I'll take a thou, it could be a burr or something like that inside there, so not a problem. I'm glad I double checked the measurement there. And here I'm measuring the concentricity. I moved the indicator inside the barrel a little bit to the reamed 5/16 inch hole, and you can see it's less than half a thou all the way around. So very pleased with the overall concentricity. I'm glad I double checked it. That just gives me a little more confidence when I start using the grinder. Hey folks, for this segment I thought I'd show the making of the drive belt for the Quorn Tool and Cutter Grinder. This is matter of fact the same safety blade, that single edge razor that I used for making the original one for the pillar tool. And one thing I just noticed right now is that the edge of this, one of the edges, is not perfectly square, and that's going to be important for making a nice clean joint. So I'm going to clean that up right now, just cut that little angled portion off. You can probably hear my propane torch hissing in the background here. I lit that beforehand, and the idea is to get the razor blade very hot, like glowing red. Doesn't take long with the razor blade. I'm going to go ahead and heat this thing up, including the back part, so it'll hold the heat a little bit. There we go. I don't know if you can see that very well on the video or not, but it doesn't hurt to have that thing nice and hot to hold the heat for the actual joining. Alright, so set the torch aside, set this on so we melt the two pieces and then mash them together. Try to get them close to lined up as possible and just hold it steady for a couple minutes till it cools down. Sorry. There we go. Fairly cool. I'm going to cut the torch off now. I think that'll do. But then first thing I do is to move this hot knife out of the way. Okay. I look all the way around to check the joint and make sure it's solid all the way around. This flashing is easy to clean off. You can do it any number of ways. Probably the easiest way is to take a safety razor blade like that, just like this. This is what they look like. Clean this one off. Or an X-Acto knife like I was just using, and you can just kind of saw it along just to clean off the little ridge there that's formed. But that's all there is to it. I'll bring you back and show you the conclusion here in a minute. And here's the finished drive belt installed. As you can see, it's got a little bit of give there. It's fairly snug, but if it stretches out over time, I can loosen these bolts and then rotate the motor and tighten it up even further. But I don't think I'm going to need to right now anyway. But I'm real pleased with how that came out. I will be honest with you. I haven't done this in a while, and the first one, the video that you actually see, that actually I put it on and ran it and it actually broke. So I just heated it back up again and did it over again. Practice makes perfect with these things, so you may have to practice a couple times. So this is the second go around and it came out perfect. Another thing in this video, I'll put a still picture in, but when I first made the motor mount bracket, this was an ugly kind of angled off edge, and this was a little bit square right here. So I did smooth those. I cut them off with a bandsaw and ground them down, and I sanded the whole thing. You can use a belt sander on aluminum. I sanded it all down nice and flat, and I've used my aluminum polish to polish that up a little bit. So I'll walk around. Another thing, I took the wiring, I put it in a little bit neater wire loom there. Still have to dress this up a little bit, but pretty pleased with how that came out overall. Here's a back picture of the Quorn as it stands so far. Okay, so this will be the final segment for this week's episode. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I hope it's been useful to you and helpful. Please give me a thumbs up. Please like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and most importantly, pass the word as I am trying to grow the channel. So I appreciate your help, and I hope this has been interesting and useful to you.